Alistair, you've had a lot of your work picked up by Zero Hedge, but recently, particularly the coverage that you've been doing in American inner cities where the life and the robustness of everything is just depleting, particularly in the retail market. But your coverage in Baltimore has really been picked up since your coverage of Detroit. Tell us, what did you discover? Tell us about all the footage and everything that you found when you covered Baltimore and the depleting market of consumption in that city.
Owen, thanks for having me on. I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland, and you're starting to see a trend. I really think we need to start out and speak to the epicenter of where I started this, and it was Detroit. And what I came across Detroit was that the industry was gone many years ago, and I'm talking about 1960s. And when we're talking about like William Strauss and the generational turnings in the U.S., that was the period of the American high. Remember, that's when the baby boomers were all being born. We saw industry erupting. And then shortly after that, we saw globalism take hold, the elites shipping off our industry overseas, and then a depletion of the neighborhoods. What we have to understand, and we're going to go to the rhythm of what I picked up from Detroit to Baltimore, is that an industry would come into a town. So, for example, Detroit, automotive, the industry would be built, and then around the industry, we would have a community being built. What I saw in Detroit was a deterioration of the community because the industry was gone. Let's jump over to Baltimore, and I saw rhythm. I saw a pattern, and it's the exact same thing. Baltimore was actually one of the greatest cities, not just in America, but in the world. We had steel, we had aeronautics, we had all this great industry, and it's gone. And some of the end results of these industries leaving is economic disparities. It's the retail consumption is being squashed right now. It's 16,000 vacant homes in Baltimore. It's the homicide rate. That's the real understanding here, is that the homicide rate in Baltimore as of Friday, last Friday, just hit the highest in the country. And this is and kind of what I spoke about in these videos, this is a national issue that the mainstream media continues to ignore, is that how the inner cities and the population in these inner cities continue to dwindle, not just in size, because the U.S. Census just came out the other week and said that the Baltimore population falls to a 100-year low. With population decrease, you cripple the tax base, and even here in the city, our police force, especially here in Baltimore, it has dwindled to a size that Baltimore City, and I was at the recent hearing, is begging the federal government for ATF, FBI, all the ABCs. They are begging the federal government to bring in forces to get the city under control. One of the items that I heard in the city hall meeting is through officials from, we'll call it the city hall, from the Baltimore city officials to the police officials. And I kept hearing one rhythm, one pattern. Before summer. So what's happening in Baltimore is we are entering a crisis period before summer, before the peak homicides occur. Now, this all comes to a time where the wealth income disparity here between whites and blacks is huge. And I have an article right here. This is from the Baltimore Sun. And some of the median household incomes in African Americans in Baltimore is $33,000 compared to $62,000 in whites. Now, keep in mind, Maryland is a very liberal state, as well as it's a very high income state as well. So, why do we see these disparities? And I had a great, and that video you just showed, I had a great interview with individuals in the street. And actually where I was very close to Freddie Gray. Very, very close. That town, part of town is West Baltimore. I call it the Triangle of Death, and that's because all of these murders and homicides are happening here. And what's happening is that these neighborhoods have been forgotten about for decades, since globalism took the industry and sent it overseas, and has forgotten about these neighborhoods. And I think it's something that we really need to address. And the video that you see here, there was an entire block of row homes that I was just stumbled across that were on fire. And I looked all around me.
Did you say on fire?
Fire. You'll see it. You'll see it. Row home after row home, they were on fire. Now get ready, Owen. This is what the fire not the firefighters, but the owner next door, who was a shop owner, he told me that he does not think that a lot of these fires are started by the homeless. He thinks they're started by the city. He thinks they're started by the city. Keep in mind, Baltimore has, from a recent Washington Post article from Terrence McCoy, 16,000 vacant homes. That is 16%, or excuse me, that's by Baltimore City's metric, however they measured it. But from the U.S. Census Bureau, they're saying that Baltimore could have as much as 46,800 vacant homes. That's 16% of Baltimore's housing stock.
Well, and it's amazing to look at just going through these cities that used to be bustling with activity, bustling with retail, bustling with consumption. I mean, honestly, I was looking at your drone footage. It's just like, it's unbelievable. For blocks, you've got homes that are collapsing. People can't even walk the streets. Homicide rates are up. And let's keep in mind, as you said, this is a city that has been led by Democrats and liberals for decades. And I'm amazing to hear you bring this point up. And it was an interesting point where you talk about the income inequality between black people and white people. I wonder, why do you think the liberal media isn't jumping all over that narrative? Why? Because it's liberal leadership in that city that's caused it.
It destroys the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative. Let me tell you the real narrative about moving to Baltimore. The real narrative about moving to Baltimore, you won't hear this anywhere else if you're from here, is because Under Armour. We know Under Armour. And by the way, I'm going to jump to this video right here real quick, and then I'll come back to it. This is one of America's oldest malls that you just saw. It's a 200-year-old mall with 64 stores, vacant, completely vacant. No, there weren't any retail consumers there. It's incredible. But anyways, back to the narrative about moving to Baltimore for the past 10 years. It's been on the gentrification of Kevin Plank, of Under Armour, this big apparel company. You know, they're kind of like the Nikes and Adidas of the world. But what happened is that it was a gentrification narrative of moving back to Baltimore, and that is what we see. But it's cracking. And what the millennials don't understand, this goes for a lot of these major cities that were very industrialized. What they don't understand is that the 50 years of rot by the Democrats and the liberals and the elites and the politicians who sold out these citizens, the millennials who are moving into these cities don't understand that there's 50 years of rot. That's 50 years of uphill battles that the millennials moving into Baltimore and into Detroit, and you hear the narratives, and I'll tell you something very interesting, but you hear these narratives, and I thought to myself, you know, I hear this gentrification narrative, and it's great and all, but let me go a mile from where this gentrification is happening, and it is Freddie Gray's neighborhood. Let me go up to Detroit, where the gentrification is happening. Down the street, once again, it's a rhythm. You see the decay. So it's quite interesting, like you're saying.
Well, and I'd like to hear also, I mean, talk about, I'm from St. Louis. We had a similar instance. It's not as bad as Baltimore. They've actually done some revamping, but it always seems to be in the areas where there's public housing, a lot of people that are relying on, you know, different packages, whether it be, you know, food stamps or subsidized housing and stuff like that. A lot of that is around that area.
Yes. And, you know, Baltimore is very interesting because I've been following the riots, and actually that's where we met in D.C. and you know, that was a heck of an experience.
Yeah, the Baltimore riots that you covered that then led to them playing a baseball game in an empty stadium.
Look, the people in Baltimore, and I've shared you guys this, have been part of a system that has forgotten them since the American High. And most cities since the American High, which was 1965, Baltimore is about 1968 with the riots. So with that being said, these people, these individuals who have been forgotten and lost, what has happened is that they have very legitimate reasons. This is East Baltimore. This is very bad. These are entire blocks, guys, of nothing. These people have legitimate reasons to cry out and say, help me. The system has failed me. Globalism has, they don't know what globalism is, but they understand that they look around their environment and see roofs that are off and no cars.
And this is thanks to Democrat leadership, folks. Do not be confused. Decades of Democrat leadership. Alistair Williamson from Stockboard Asset, thank you for joining us.